Well, that was an abrupt entry.
Here we are.
Happy end of December, everybody. I am Paul Thompson coming to you from the dorm rooms at St. Pete because the show must go on. And this is my Project Hell, where for the next 20 minutes or so, Kelly and I are going to throw away the corporate lingo and really just talk to you about no nonsense project management and hopefully giving you solutions, tools, tricks that apply to real project problems.
And I'm Kelly Schockler. And once again, Paul and I are very excited to bring you our end of the year special episode of My Project Hell, where Paul and I pull out some of our favorite resources and suggestions to help you advance your project management competencies and street cred for 2023. So before we jump into that, we want to welcome those of you who are here live. Thanks for joining us. And since you're here live, you have access to the chat here in Zoom. So as Paul and I are sharing resources and thoughts and advice, please feel free to chime in with your own advice and experience. We love that. And we're not using the Q&A feature, so no worries there. All right, so Paul, we've got a list that we've talked about and shared together. We've got training, resources, books. Let's start with the books. And you go first. I want to hear what book would you recommend to our project management listeners to help them in their skill set and journey?
No worries. So anybody that knows me knows usually the first thing out of my mouth is I don't read. Dyslexia, a whole 9 yards, right? So you kind of gotta pretty much hit the bar for me to open up the book, right? It's got to be good. And this one is an older one. I've read it a number of times. I've also, let's be fair, I first start with the Audible and went and got it, and then we went from there. So it's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And he's from the Black Swan group, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But Never Split the Difference is about negotiation. And the reason I think it's important that every project manager should be considering this book is that we negotiate everything. Kelly, how many times have you had to, negotiate with the team? Okay, guys, can we get this done if we remove that? Or, negotiated with business leaders for we're going to need a whole, hour and a half to update these sites,
It's like an everyday thing, negotiation.
It's what we do for a living, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's just hidden in a few other things, but it's a skill set that I think is important and not really polished up as much as it could be for project managers. And it is a very different approach on it. So I'm going to encourage you to take a look at the Black Swan Group, which is his company, and then read this book. And then drop us a note, Kelly and I a note, and let us know what you think about that one.
Yeah, and just to let you all know, we will be giving you a general universal link that's going to list all of the resources we talk about today. So don't worry about trying to capture anything here. We'll get that to you. So I like it. And I like that you mentioned the audiobook because a lot of people don't like to read. So I think audio is a good way to go. And then when I was thinking about the book that I wanted to recommend, it was something that project managers could really use to boost their chops in 2023. I immediately went to the David Allen's Getting Things Done or Charlie Gilkey's Start Finishing. I went straight to the get it done mode, which seems to be in my DNA. It's drilled into project managers, right? Get it done. You're only successful if you are on time and on budget and in scope, that triple constraint monster. As I stood back for a minute, kind of laughed at myself and all right. So while getting things done is what a project manager needs, a skill set we need to have, it can also be a stumbling block for us because we can get so focused on doing stuff. It's at the expense of leading people in an emotionally intelligent way. So with that in mind, I stood back, I was looking at all my books because I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. And I'm like, what is the one thing in the shelf that really helped me? And I pulled out a title from Daniel Goleman and some of the other authors that's called Primal Leadership. And it's really about leading with emotional intelligence. And I knew I wanted to share this book, Primal Leadership, Unleashing the Power of Emotional Intelligence. And I came across this book in 2014, and it had a deep impact on me. What I loved about it was the experts who are researchers, scientific researchers in emotional intelligence. They highlighted the findings that as a person climbs higher in a position or is at a position longer, our ability to self-assess is less accurate. So the longer we're there, you can imagine complacency sets in, less
Or
self-awareness.
we start believing our own press, right?
Exactly. And the paradox is we need to be more self-aware than ever as we're moving along in our career. So this helped me really understand the significance of leading teams in a way that maximizes team emotional intelligence. But to do that, I've got to check in with myself and check out where am I on the EI spectrum. And then I can help my teams and my stakeholders come along. So manage myself first. How is our social awareness? How are we picking up cues in meetings? Where is our relationship management skills at? How can we do more of the things that work and then less of the things that cause people to react negatively? So
Less inciting the riot.
exactly. And in this book is a emotional intelligence self-assessment. Of course there is. So you can see where your strengths or weaknesses are, find the gaps, make a plan for filling those gaps. And so as a passionate self-learner, I also appreciated that the authors pointed out that self-directed learning is a really great way to intentionally develop this skill. So it's got some excellent prompts and activities for doing just that. It's going to help you on your project management journey. So that was the book I wanted to share. So what's next? Like, we've got training. What would you suggest for training, Paul?
Oh, so this one's a little tough for me. There's going to be a lot of self-promotion in here, so pardon my side of that. But those of you that are familiar with the rope framework know that we put out a guide. It's really a course study on how to apply it to a data center move, right? The book itself is Data Center Migration Using the Rope Framework, and ROPE stands for Results-Oriented Project Execution.
I was going to ask.
What's unique about it, though, is it sits on top of Scrum, on top of PMI, on top of Waterfall, on top of Agile. It really kind of takes you through how do you not just, you need a budget, but how do you put one together that makes sense for a complex IT project? So it's really around how the case study is and how they interlink and how to use them that way. So that's kind of the abilities that it's going to focus on, is taking all those things you learn from just a base level project management skill, and now taking it and applying those skills in a way that line up and let you put it all together in a way that works great for us. Now, this is where some of the hard part was. It's a book, did that go in the book section? It's a course. So what I'm going to tease out is, right now we are in the process of deciding how to create an LMS, right? A learning system with our rope framework. If you work for MetaGuire, it's the system you go through, you learn, it then goes through all the steps and how to do it. we're looking at now making that available to others out in the community, project management community, so they can take this and use it to their advantage. So it's not out there yet. Get the book today, and then keep an eye on our website to see when it's going to be available for you to take that as a learning course.
I'm glad you shared that. We don't often talk a lot about the things that we've created and are out there, and we thought, well, let's do that this time. So
You've got a truckload of it.
well, I have my project management success accelerator out there. And so really I geared this toward accidental and aspiring project managers.
Right.
So it's online, it's self-paced. And what I did was I packed everything in there that you need to get your projects off to a successful start and a complete finish, and then the important stuff in between. Really, it was taking all of the best practices that I've learned in my career in project and program management, not just in consulting, but I learned a lot as an FTE too, of course. And then put it into a way that was understandable. It wasn't intimidating, and really for those who want to cut to the chase and learn what is it that you need to do projects. So if you're interested in that shortest path on how to run a successful project, PMSA is for you. If you want the inside scoop on what works and what doesn't in certain project situations, this would also be a good choice. If you're looking for a PMP boot camp study guide, no, you need to look elsewhere. This is not for that. It's best practices on executing project management and guiding principles to become an excellent project manager. So what is that? Being responsive, being confident, and competent. Demonstrating that servant leadership behaviors, being able to navigate complexity, staying flexible and resilient, serving as a change agent, and then really focusing on value and quality in the work that you're delivering. And then being able to manage stakeholder relationships like a pro. So for those of you who are listening now and are curious, we've got a link in our resource PDF that will lead you to here at the end, and just invite you to take a look.
Well, and I really like that you've built it around the concept of the accidental project manager, right? It really helps people that have been thrown into the deep end, and helps elevate them quickly up to being able to manage a project that was tossed at them with no other support. So it's
Exactly.
a great resource.
Exactly, and that kind of leads us into the next resources we want to share. Tell us about the PM competency assessment. How would you even know where you have gaps?
Right. So more shameless self-promotion that Kelly and I built. We put together a project manager self-assessment tool. And when I say we built it, we kind of assembled everything, but we went out to other project experts, to some of the people you've heard us talk to. We went out to PMI leadership and got input from those folks around the Puget Sound, and really built a matrix of the skills that project managers need, and then sort of got in line with, well, what does that skill look like when you're starting out, right? When you're a project coordinator or just entering it, what do you need to be? How proficient do you need to be? Where is your competency level? And then as you progress, right, and become more of a project manager, and now you've taken on that responsibility, how have all those skills had to progress, and what is the level you should feel comfortable at in order to manage a project? And it goes all the way through senior project manager and program manager, so that you can really kind of look through the skill set, see the skills, and then see sort of how they need to progress as your career progresses. It also then takes a look at where are you in those, gives you an opportunity to get feedback from your cohorts, and then maps it all together to show you these are the areas you may want to work on over the next year. And then another page full of resources on how you might apply some of the resources to the different skill areas so you can boost your skills in areas you're low in, or just those that you're already good in and you want to take to the next level. So really, it's a tool we've shared with project management across the country when we've gone out and talked to some of the PMI groups. It's a resource that we offer to everybody because it's a way to build the PM community stronger so that we're not looked at as just the admin folks that schedule meetings, take notes, and send out status reports, because we know the skills required are so much more.
Definitely. And really, I think it's a tool that you can use year over year to see and track your growth. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. So take a look at that. And then another resource we wanted to share about is some that we didn't create. It's called the Noun Project. So as project managers, we usually have several moments in our projects where we are required to put together a presentation, right? Presentations for our stakeholders. Maybe it's the kickoff. Maybe it's the project state of the union for leadership. Maybe it's the recap closeout presentation, whatever. You need inspiration. You need images and icons that can communicate a thought or an idea, preferably without words or few words, because we want to avoid the old death by PowerPoint, which is easy to slip into when you're trying to communicate a lot of information. But that's where a subscription to the Noun Project can really help spark your creativity. It's about $40 a year. I use this service, Paul does too, extensively. I use it for my website. I use it for my presentations. There's millions, literally millions of customizable icons for about any topic you can imagine. And you can simplify and clearly communicate your ideas in your presentation. So get rid of all your words, simplify with Noun Project.
Yeah. And Kelly, you know what, one of the things that I think you touched on, right, is we're image focused. You know, human beings we're visual. So an image processes 6,000 times faster than words. And I think you're right, you know, death by PowerPoint is painful. And it also, you know, requires you to think more how you're going to communicate without the words. So it really makes you get clear on your ideas you're bringing forward.
Well, and then when you're in the audience and you see a slide come up with packed with information, now just took my ears off of you. And I'm trying to read, and then you're in the background, wah, 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 right? And so I just lost my audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so what's next? About skill building. What kind of skills would you recommend for project managers going into 2023?
So I think I've said it before, say it again. Collaboration tools are our future, whether it's Smartsheet, Monday, all of those. I'm gonna recommend that if your organization uses one, you get sharp with it, understand it inside and out, try to take it to the next level in project management, for collaboration, for communication. If you're in an organization that's not picked a tool yet, start looking around so you can think through what are the pros and cons of each of them. We picked Smartsheet. I strongly recommend you take a look there. If nothing else, there's lots of good material on how to use it and how to apply it to project management. But collaboration tools, I think, are kind of our future, whether we like it or not. So get on board, understand everything from Slack to Teams to Smartsheet and Monday.com.
Yep, usually they have trials, free trials. You can try these things out. So I think that's important advice, Paul. One of the things I've been thinking about on this skill building is ESG. So I spoke briefly about ESG a few months ago on a Love It or Lose It episode that we had. This is definitely in the spotlight right now. It's something that I think project managers need to pay attention to because it's not going away. So just to refresh memories, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And what's happening right now is companies and organizations are facing increased pressure to consider sustainability and social impact strategies in these areas. They've got stakeholders, they've got shareholders, and they've got the general public asking more questions about how do you operate? So last year, for instance, climate disclosure, big deal. Determining a strategy around climate change and how that's going to impact company operations, supply chain, and customers. It became mandatory for public companies in the UK, Japan, New Zealand, and Singapore to do this. And it's coming down the pike for the US and the EU. There's plans in progress to increase disclosure requirements. So these issues for ESG are endless, right? You've got healthcare, diversity, inclusion, risk management, corporate structure. I mean, projects usually center around these kinds of challenges, and they're urgent challenges. So what does this mean for a PM, right? I think it's a couple things. Dig in and research ESG frameworks and how organizations are building it into their DNA and ultimately their project strategy. And I think as PMs, we need to at least understand data analysis, right? How can you and your team more accurately predict and map out risks and see what the impact is going to be to the project? Having the ability to creatively problem solve, right? Those skills come in handy when your team is going to need to mitigate a potential negative social or environmental impact. And that critical thinking and then that empathy that I talked about earlier, that emotional intelligence quotient, you're going to be able to handle your stakeholder relationships around these issues, and you're going to be able to understand multiple perspectives from external stakeholders better. So no doubt, I think that project professionals who support their company's ESG efforts and start getting up to speed on this are going to have that it factor in being able to coalesce stakeholder groups and also measure outcomes, right? Because that's part of ESG, is measuring the outcomes and the impact. This is going to set you apart.
Well, no one's going to accuse me of having, strong ESG or emotional intelligence. So I'm sure I should be taking a look at some of that stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's that time. Our producer Katie is subtly indicating.
She's subtly telling us we're talking way too much. So why don't we just real quick, people to follow, I'm going to recommend everybody Google Shannon Sussick. She's run companies, but she does it in a way that I think project managers will find interesting, because she applies project management to managing strategy and tactical execution at a C-suite level.
Okay, my person to follow, Jonathan Fields. He's a national best-selling author. He's the founder of the Good Life Project. He's got one of the top-ranked podcasts in the world. He's got a good-sized global mission-driven community. And Wall Street Journal named Good Life Project one of the top self-development podcasts. So if you're working on yourself and your self-awareness, check out the hundreds of podcasts Jonathan has. I know I've learned a great deal from him. So awesome. Bring us home, Paul.
And don't forget, both Kelly and I have tool libraries, right? Take a look at our websites. There are sections in there to download free tools, tips, one-pagers. Please, it's available to all project managers. I encourage you, keep learning. All right. So hopefully this is going to help everybody that shows up for My Project Hell.
Yep, that's a wrap for this episode. You can find us on YouTube. We can catch replays of every My Project Hell episode. And then also hit Paul and I up for some complimentary time. We've got 30-minute slots that we're happy to talk to you about anything that your heart desires about project management. And that link is in the post-show email that if you registered for this, you will receive in your email inbox.
That's right. I hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as Kelly and I do putting it on. If you want to participate in Coach's Corner, drop us a note at myprojecthell@gmail.com. We're always looking for folks to participate as part of the program. And in the post email, show, please fill out the survey and give us the feedback so we can continue to improve the show.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Take care.